Hey, what's up, ReLeader family out there? I got something I want to share with you today, and I first want to acknowledge it's been a really long time since I posted a video. I'm constantly posting articles or little what I call ReLeader Real Talks, and I hope those are encouraging to you. But I got to get better at doing these videos, and somebody was asking me the other day why I haven't been posting them. I'm like, well, I don't want to be stuck in this rat race of having to post something every week. I want to do it because I have something to say. And I guess when I have something that I feel like God puts on my heart to share with leaders, I will turn on my camera and post something. And I have something to share that I want to encourage you. That's probably one of my biggest passions is trying to encourage leaders because I know how discouraging it can be at times. Before I do, I must say, thunder up, go OKC Thunder, national champs. Okay, if that makes you mad, I'm so sorry, but we finally won one, and I'm pretty excited about it. So, okay, so I preached a message this past weekend that even while I was preaching it, I'm like, there's some really cool leader stuff in here that I need to mine out and just share. And I've got some notes down here that I may glance at a couple of times. But there's this moment most of us listening to this, if you know anything about the Bible or church, Moses at the burning bush, and God comes down to him to basically call him to go and be the deliverer. It's in Exodus 3 and 4. And I'm amazed by how much time the Lord spends on trying to convince Moses that he really was called to this. And in the message, I talk about three things that God came to try to convince Moses of. And in the text, in the burning bush, Moses says, "Here I am." But then a couple of verses later, he says, "Who am I?" And so you can see this call that goes forth to Moses, and he's wrestling. And I saw three kind of themes come out that I think applies to leaders. You and me, we're leaders, and some of the doubts and concerns and fears that we have as leaders. And so I thought I'd just quickly share them. Again, I just want to encourage you as leaders. So the first thing that I think the Lord really came to deal with Moses on was his identity. And this is something every leader needs to hear, because he comes down to Moses and he says, "I'm sending you." He says, "I'm sending you." And he could have sent anyone, right? He could have chosen anybody for this job, but he wanted Moses to know, "I'm sending you. I chose you." And even that is an affirmation of identity. It's saying, "I know who you are. I know your weaknesses. I know what you might disqualify yourself with, but I still choose you." It's like if you interviewed for a job and there are 400 applicants, and they call you and they say, "We choose you." That is one of the greatest affirmations you could ever have. And I think for leaders, we need to be constantly reminded that when it comes to the role that you're in, whether you're a director in upper management, whether you're CEO in executive management, whether you're coming in as a new business owner, you bought a business out and you're running it. It doesn't matter if you're running something that you didn't start. There's moments where you just feel overwhelmed, and I just want to come to remind everybody that God will first speak to your identity first, and so you have to believe that God chose you. And there's moments where it sure doesn't feel like it, when things don't go your way, when things aren't going smoothly. But I think if you want to lead with any level of intentionality or passion, you have to be constantly reminding yourselves that God chose me. And I may have said this before, you may have heard me say this before, but I started praying this prayer early on in my leader journey. And I would say, "Lord, if there's someone better fit to lead than me, then I submit my resignation and I choose to do something more difficult." And I think I ripped that prayer. I heard Rick Warren say it one time. And I just loved that, because every night I would resign. Every night I would say, "Lord, if there's somebody better to do this than me, then I submit my resignation and I'm willing to do something more difficult." And then I'd wake up the next morning and say, "Okay, Lord, I'm still here. I resigned last night, and you didn't accept my resignation this morning." And what that reminded me of is, I'm not doing this for any other reason than God chose me. And Paul said that in Galatians chapter 1, I think it's verse 15 or so. He said, Jesus appointed me, and I'm paraphrasing, and it says, he chose me. He chose me. And there's something that's not arrogant about that. You're not being pompous or anything like that. You're just saying, no, I'm here for a reason. God chose me. God called me, and I'm gonna lead with confidence because God chose me. And if He wants somebody else, I'm fine with that. Um, let me look through my notes here and make sure I didn't miss anything there. Oh yeah, the devil will always mess with your identity. That's what he always is going to do. He's going to question your identity. And I use the example of Jesus. When Jesus went to the wilderness, the enemy attacks Jesus by attacking his identity, by saying, if you really are the Son of God, then do this. So he's challenging his identity. But before he even went to the wilderness, right before he went to the wilderness, he was baptized. He came up out of the water. The Holy Spirit descended on him like a dove, and a voice from heaven said, this is my Son, in whom I'm well pleased. So God was speaking to Jesus. His heavenly Father was speaking to his identity before he ever did a single thing on earth, before he ever accomplished anything, before he ever did any miracles. It was an identity issue first. And you need to have the confidence to say, it's who I am, it's what I do, I'm a ReLeader, because ReLeading is really hard. So if you try to be a ReLeader without understanding your identity, you're going to have a really hard path. The second thing, okay, I'll try to get through these quick so you don't have to listen for very long. The second thing God dealt with in Moses was his capacity. Let me read the passage. Moses says, what if they don't believe me? What if they don't listen to me? What if they say God did not appear to you? And then verse 2, God tells him, what is that in your hand? So he was telling Moses, what do you already have in your possession? Sometimes we think as leaders that it's a capacity issue, that if I had the right people, if I had the right amount of money, if I had the right giftings, if I could speak better, if I could present better, if I had better technology or whatever it is, we're always in this what if or if only mindset. And I love that God told Moses, you've already got what you need. It's in your hand. In fact, you've been carrying it around for 40 years as a shepherd. And so as leaders, we have to think, okay, what do I already have? These aren't the people that I would have hired, but they're here. And what could God do with them? This isn't the budget that I want. This isn't the core values that I would choose. These aren't the elders or the board that I would choose. And maybe over time, God will shift that and change that. But what has God put in my hand? And there's this realization of coming to terms with, God has given me everything I need. If I will acknowledge it, if I will allow God to use it, then God can do something magnificent in spite of my shortcomings, in spite of my lack of what I think I need. So there's a capacity issue. And so let's stop saying, if only I had this, if only I had that, or I'm not sharp enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the right leadership acumen, or I don't have the right eloquency to my speech. And just start saying, okay, God has given me identity. He chose me for this role. He has given me capacity to lead in the realm of which I'm chosen to lead right this minute. It doesn't mean more resources aren't coming, but it means today I can do what I need to do today because I have what I need to do today. That's a tongue twister. So he gives me capacity. He gives me the ability, right? So I just want to encourage you, for today, you have everything you need, okay, to get done today what you need to get done today. And then the last thing I would say that God came to confront Moses with was the concept of sufficiency. So this is the idea of Moses tells God in this process, I think it's in the beginning of chapter 4, Moses tells God, I'm not eloquent in speech. I'm slow of speech. And he's saying, I understand I'm gifted, but I lack in these few areas. And this is the part that hit me, that this is a leadership talk. That many times we compare ourselves to other leaders and we think that we don't have what it takes. We think we're lacking, right? We are not sufficient. We have an insufficiency of a particular gifting or a particular talent that we're going to need to turn this organization around. And if we're not careful, we'll allow that insufficiency or that insecurity to keep us from stepping out and saying yes. And that's all God was trying to get Moses to do, is to say yes. Just say yes. Okay? I've given you identity. I've given you capacity. Any insufficiency that you need, I am the sufficient one that's going to implement and supplement what you need. And so what does God say to him? He says, who made your mouth, right? And then he says, what about your brother Aaron? He says, there's some really powerful language there in the text. He said, you talk to Aaron, and it will be as though he is your mouth speaking to the people. What does that mean? It means that God brought the sufficiency that Moses would need to lead the way that he was intended to lead. So he was called to be a deliverer. And there were certain things Moses was very gifted to do. And what Moses realized the longer he heard the call is he's missing some important pieces of leadership gifting to pull it off. One being, I can't speak. And so what did God do? God supplied a supplemental person to come and be his mouthpiece for him. And this is what leading is all about. There is no such thing as a leader that has every gift. You don't have every gift. If you're bad with money, then you need a great CFO. If you're bad with organizational skills, then you need to hire in a chief of staff or someone of that nature. I'm learning this right now. We've just made a really great, important hire at Victory Church, Dr. Rhonda Davis, who thinks at a much higher level structurally, organizational leadership, organizational theory, culture, intentionality. And she's just been with us a couple of months, and she is filling the gaps of the role that me and my other leaders don't have. And we're not threatened by that. We think it's amazing. So what is God doing? He is supplying the sufficiency of a weakness that I have. And so I'm not going to pretend that I don't have the weakness. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm weak in this area. Who is God? Who do I need to allow God to send to me to supplement the sufficiency in which I am insufficient of? And it's so life-giving. It's so fulfilling when we allow God. We're not insecure, because what we have to do is admit our weaknesses, right? And that's never a great thing to do, but we have to admit our weaknesses. And when we do, God does something really powerful. This is proof of Paul in 1 Corinthians, where he says, I had a thorn in my side. You know this text. He says, I prayed 3 times for God to take it away. And what did God say back to him? He said, my grace is sufficient. God was saying, I am the sufficiency that you need, and I will supplement your weaknesses. So he says, my grace is sufficient. But watch this. He says, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So his power is perfected. It is the most effective. His power is the most efficient. His power is the most powerful, where when we acknowledge our weaknesses and stop making excuses, stop faking it till we make it, we just understand that God will supply our every need, even in leadership, according to his riches and glory. When does he do this? When we acknowledge that we're weak in this area. So if you don't know where you're weak as a leader, ask your team. They will tell you. If you don't know your weak spots, you ask anybody around you on your team. If you have a healthy culture, let them tell you what your weaknesses are. Don't be threatened by that. Understand that this is a spot that we need to supply. We need to supplement the weaknesses of our leaders. We need to supplement the weaknesses of our organization. And that happens more freely when we are willing to admit where we are weak. And guess what? His grace is sufficient, and his power is perfected in the weaknesses that we are willing to put on the table and allow God to work and move through that. So what should have taken a moment, right? Moses said, here I am, followed by, who am I? Now I contrast that with Isaiah, when God is speaking with Isaiah, and he says, whom shall I send, right? And who's willing to go? And Isaiah said the same thing. Isaiah said, here am I. Immediately followed with, send me, send me. So Moses, and this isn't a bash Moses podcast, okay? But Moses was, here am I, choose someone else, right? It took 2 chapters for God to convince Moses to say yes. That's all God needs from you, by the way, ReLeader, is a yes. Just say yes. Just say yes. and know that the only reason you can do it is because of your identity, who he's called you to be. You're a ReLeader. God chose you. Don't doubt that for another minute. When you have a bad day, when people talk about you on social media, when your budget's down, when your culture's not doing great, God chose you. Pull up your bootstraps and get back at it. Why? Because of capacity. He has given you everything you need, okay? Everything you need, you've got in your toolbox, okay? And last but not least, the best news of all is that when we admit our weaknesses to those around us, God will supplement. He is all sufficient, okay? He is all knowing. He's all powerful. He's everywhere all the time. He will come and supply your every need that you could ever possibly need, all right? I think that's all. I think that's all. I've ranted long enough. We're about 15 minutes in, all right? So be encouraged, ReLeader. God chose you. You got this. Don't you dare quit. You get up today. You get back in the saddle. God has more in store for you right around the corner. Lead that nation, your organization, into the promised land. He chose you. He called you. On the way to your promised land is a wilderness, but you're called. You can lead them through it. All right? That's all. Love you guys. Have an awesome day.